Hello and welcome to Adult Foster Care Policy Training and Enforcement Section's video, Communication Skills for Caregivers. In this video, we will focus on strategies for communicating with the residents in your care. We'll take a look at understanding communication as more than words, the communication cycle, the importance of communication, tips for effective communication, active listening skills, communication barriers, and sum it all up with final tips for good communication. Join me as we discover more about communication. Communication is more than the words we say. It involves our senses, biases, even our demographics and emotions. Here's an enlightening quote expounding on effective communication from renowned motivational speaker Tony Robbins. To effectively communicate, we must realize that we are all different in the way we perceive the world and use this understanding as a guide to our communication with others. With this quote in mind, let's explore the communication cycle. A caregiver's interaction with residents is usually the speaker and listener type of communication, which is a process of sending and receiving messages using verbal, the words chosen, and nonverbal, body language and facial expression, cues. Let's look at each step of the communication cycle. First, we need the sender. This is the person with some sort of idea, information, or message to send to the receiver. The receiver is the person receiving the information or message. That brings us to the message. How the idea gets from the sender to the receiver is the message or idea being communicated. Encoding. To encode is how the sender chooses to package the message using verbal, nonverbal, or both cues. The channel is how the receiver takes in the message using their five senses to understand the message. That brings us to decoding, making sense of the message or idea that's been sent. Once the receiver understands, they will send feedback. The receiver sends back a response to the sender about the message. We can't forget the element of noise, which is anything such as distractions that complicate the message that's being sent. Talking is speaking words, but communication is the basis of all relationships and sharing of information to reach a common understanding. Relaying the correct message is a vital part of communicating with those you care for, and an important part of being a good caregiver. As we saw in the video, effective communication yields a positive outcome, but miscommunication can lead to stress and frustration for everyone involved. As a caregiver, you need to communicate with many people as a valuable resource for each resident's care needs, medication passing, follow-up appointments, daily care needs, changes in physical and eating habits, as well as providing information to family and healthcare professionals. You are the advocate that helps everyone understand a resident's goals and needs. With that in mind, ask yourself this question. Do you fully understand what the person in your care is trying to express to you? Here are some tips. Listen before you respond. The resident may not say the right words. It's up to you as the listener to decipher what the resident wants. The resident may see a bag of chips on the table and say, "I'm hungry." You recognize the resident is asking for the chips and offer the chips and a glass of juice. Be aware of the resident's nonverbal communication. Recognizing the resident's nonverbal cues is vital. Is the resident agitated, frustrated, confused, happy? The resident may not be able to convey how he or she is feeling through words, but emotions are displayed through nonverbal cues. An essential part of your communication skills is to pay close attention to those nonverbal cues. Another question to ask yourself: do you get your thoughts and ideas across effectively? Here are some additional tips. Pick the right time. One way to create an atmosphere which makes a positive result more likely is picking an appropriate time for the conversation. Demanding the resident go for a bath during their favorite TV show may not have a positive outcome. Select the most appropriate environment. During a commercial, explain to the resident that you'll be back to assist with bath time after the TV show. Then, just as important, keep your word and return. Think how your words will affect the other person. Effective communication involves knowing how to listen attentively. It's the ability to offer empathy, open-mindedness, and helpful feedback based on what you hear and see. Also, a friendly demeanor, confidence, and quality nonverbal communication will help you as a caregiver to develop good relationships with the residents. Be aware of your nonverbal communication. Are you in a hurry? This comes across in your actions and words. Slow down and give each resident the time and personal care they need and deserve. Now let's explore active listening skills. Another aspect of effective communication involves knowing how to listen attentively. Active listening is important because it keeps you engaged in the conversation in a positive way. It makes the other person feel heard and valued. This is a foundational skill for successful communications. Let's look at some of the active listening skills. Body language and nonverbal cues. Notice the residents and your use of nonverbal cues. As we've already mentioned, nonverbal cues is an expression of communication that sends a message. Your job is to keep your nonverbal cues in check and to recognize each resident's cues. Be attentive and affirm. Be fully present in the conversation. Avoid distractions and use words of affirmation. Uh-huh. I see. I know. Sure. Thank you. I understand. And other words like that appropriately. Use eye contact and facial expression. Eye contact shows interest, and facial expressions demonstrate empathy, concern, or other appropriate emotions. Paraphrase and reflect on what's been said to show that you understand. Ask open-ended questions to encourage further discussion, and specific questions to seek clarification. Show patience and no judgment, and don't give advice. Patience is a virtue. The resident may need more time to convey the message or complete a task. The person you're caring for is going through a very difficult time in their life and may need encouragement, not judgment or advice. Just be present and listen. Active listening builds trust and establishes rapport. Let's summarize the benefits of effective communication. Effective communication fosters trust. Your ability to listen attentively and embrace different points of view helps build rapport, and that you have the resident's best interest in mind and are making good decisions for the resident. Using words that everyone understands, avoiding jargon, technical terms, or slang is also important. Effective communication prevents or resolves problems. The ability to communicate effectively plays a large role in resolving conflicts and preventing potential ones from arising. The key is to remain calm. Make sure you understand what the resident is trying to express by listening to what they're saying verbally and nonverbally, and find a solution that's ideal for the safety and well-being of the resident. Sometimes you must agree to disagree or take the blame even though it's not your fault. Effective communication provides clarity and direction. With effective communication skills, you're able to provide a clear message that is understood. The context of your message should be clear, simple, and direct, so the resident understands and can follow what should be done. This also involves finding constructive ways to point out when something isn't going as well as it should and providing helpful feedback to get the resident back on track. Leave out additional information that will clutter the message. Effective communication creates better relationships and engagement. Good communication also improves relationships with residents as well as their family members. Keep your communication logical and connected to the main idea, while remaining courteous, respectful, polite, and listening carefully. This helps the resident feel heard and understood. This in turn nurtures mutual respect. Residents will trust you, what you have to say, and know that you will follow through. Good communication skills can play an important role in nurturing positive working relationships with residents and others that interact with the resident. As people feel listened to and understood by you, you naturally improve your relationships. When a resident feels confident in the relationship and in their understanding of what they need to do, they become more engaged and readily comply. Conflicts are resolved quickly, and the day runs much more smoothly. By prioritizing effective communication, you can increase quality time with each resident and boost good rapport and trust. We've discussed the communication cycle, effective communication, active listening, and the benefits of effective communication. We would be amiss if we didn't mention some of the barriers that can interfere with communication or conveying a message. Here are some of those barriers. Background noise blocks or distorts a message. The TV, movement outside a window, music, others talking, etc. Jumping to conclusions, making assumptions before hearing all the facts. Attitudes, emotions, strong emotions, biases, triggers or filters, being nervous, angry, tired, etc., can affect how we communicate and receive information. If you're tired or having a bad day, keep yourself in check so you're not conveying that message to the residents. Information overload. Too many details can overwhelm. Keep it simple. Give a few simple instructions at a time. Words used, such as slang, technical jargon, complicated language. Not everyone understands unordinary words. Keep your language simple and to the point. Lack of interest. Not paying attention to the resident while he or she is speaking or providing active listening techniques. Ambiguity or disorganized message. Being vague or not providing a clear message. Being unprepared for the conversation and not providing clarity. Distractions, such as looking at your phone or doing multiple things instead of paying attention to the resident that's speaking. Ill health, poor eyesight, hearing difficulties, and pain. Physical barriers can hinder communication by taking the focus off of the communication. Here's one final review, tips for good communication. Be open and honest, and give the resident your full attention. Stay positive, and use active listening. Listen, don't assume, and ask to understand if something isn't clear. Pay attention to the nonverbal cues that you and the resident are showing. They convey a message. Stay focused on the situation and solution. Find a solution that's a win-win for both you and the resident. Show you value each resident by following the tips and suggestions that we have discussed. Thank you for joining me today to discuss communication skills for caregivers. We've given you a few tips, ideas, and examples for effective communication. Also in this slide is additional resources for you to further explore the topic of communication skills. To complete the quiz that goes with this presentation, click the link below the video. Our first priority is the care and safety of the residents. So please don't hesitate to reach out to your licensing consultant if you have questions. Check back on this site often for additional training videos for adult foster care providers. Until next time, happy communicating.